Hello, I'm Emma-Louise Coffey and you're welcome to the Dairy Edge, the Teagasc Dairy podcast. We're bringing you the latest information, insights and opinion to improve dairy farm performance. On this week's episode, Johnstown Castle Farm Manager Aidan Lawless gives an update on the current performance of the spring and autumn calving herds.
At the moment we have five different groups. We have two autumn herds who would have their mean calving date there in early October. We have an intensive autumn herd and then the more extensive autumn herd. We'll go into a bit more detail on them thereafter maybe then. And then we would have two spring herds, smaller spring herds. There's only 20 cows in each group of the two spring herds. They're grazing, one herd is grazing a grass clover mix, starting off really, this is the first year of the full year of the trial, and then the other herd would be grazing a multi-species mix. So just be interesting to see how they go. So the spring herd average, there's probably about 75% of them calve now at the moment. They're only kicking in. We only started calving our due date would have been 6th of February, so we had some there in January. We actually had, just looking back on it, we're finished with our Frisian sires there now on the spring herd, and they calved their gestation length average between heifers and bulls and everything is 274 days. So just something to be, I would have been going on a gestation length of 280, but it's nearly a week earlier than that, like with the Frisian sire this year anyway. So our autumn ones back at the back end, they were about 276 days or something. So their gestation length is getting shorter with the Frisian.
So so I suppose that's something to take into account ahead of the breeding season that's coming up in the coming weeks. And looking to milk production performance then, where are the autumn herd and the spring herd at, Aidan?
Yeah, so the autumn herd they've been very consistent right throughout the winter really. Now the intensive system, their system is they're stocked at 4 cows per hectare, and we're buying in most of their winter forage, and that's in the form of maize. So their diet for the winter was about 2/3 maize, 1/3 grass silage, so they've been sort of sitting around at 27, 28 litres, and their solids would be reasonably good as well. They're probably about 440, 450 butterfat and 350, 360 protein. So they're coming in at about 2.2 kilos of solids there for most of the winter period there. So from the middle of December up until now, they're still held reasonably well. We've been jumping in and out a little bit, trying to get some grass into the diet when the weather is reasonable. So the extensive system, then their system is just straight grass silage for their winter forage and getting about 8 kilos of a nut. And now the nut that they're getting is it's what we're calling a homegrown blend. So basically there's no TM products in it, and all the protein sources are as local source as possible. So it's mainly beans and rapeseed within the nut. So just something different there as well. But they're performing, we'd be happy enough with their performance. They're back about 0.2 of a kilo of solids. Really sort of a small bit of the percentages, and then probably 1.5 litres in the milk as well. But that's probably more from the grass silage versus the maize really, rather than any difference in the nut, we'd imagine. So.
And then looking to the spring herd, Aidan, what are you seeing it performance-wise with them?
It's hard to get a sort of a yield. There's a lot of sort of fresh ones that are only starting to settle down now, but they're probably about 25, 26 litres. Any of the ones that are calved over the week or 10 days, and the butterfat was high enough, but then there's a good lot of sort of freshly calved cows, and so the butterfat was around 450, 460, I think, in protein. Then 355 was one of the tests just on that herd alone, with divided out with the herd. But like I said, they're really only settling into it at this stage. I suppose on average they're only maybe 10 days calved, like between the herd in total. And like I said before, there was about 3/4 of the herd calved, and the other quarter are going to drag out pretty much until, I suppose, maybe the 10th of April or so. It's just they're all in calf to these sires, and just would have been ones that went to second or third conception. Yeah.
And when we spoke with you this time last year, Aidan, we had very favourable conditions weather-wise, and you were actually out with the autumn calvers from, early mid-January. Talk through, I suppose, the challenge of weather conditions for you in the month of February, if you could quantify the rainfall and what that has meant for feeding of the herd.
I suppose there's no 2 years are the same, and that's for sure. But we've been just, like I said, we've been just jumping in and out. Last year was an exceptional year, and we went out early, and we would have had a plan that we would have had to come in at some stage, and we didn't really. This year we've only the one thing with the autumn herd, we have about 24% of the autumn herds, the area grazed on the intensive system, because by virtue of the fact that there's 4 cows per hectare and all the cows are calved, when we do go out we can get a good chunk of ground grazed off. So we're not that far. Our target would have been a third grazed by the 1st of March, so we're not that far off our target, and we can pick it up pretty quick. I'm conscious of the plenty of fellas listening, and they could be looking at fields underwater and all. We've had a wet February, but I suppose not as bad as a lot of parts of the country. We had about 150 mils of rain, which would be double our monthly average for February. We'd normally be about 70 or 80, the mean average, 10-year average. So we've had a very wet month of ground conditions. We've had probably periods of 6-7 days where it's just you call it and just you don't go out at all, because the benefits of getting out, they're doing more mauling, and just ground conditions are saturated. But now over the last 3 or 4 days, the storm there over the weekend, we escaped any real rain from it, so there was right good drying conditions for the last 3 or 4 days. So conditions are actually good there now. As I talk to you today, the sort of sun is shining and the ground has dried out reasonably well with the good drying. This time of the year, daylight's getting longer and all, so it can turn around quick enough. So hopefully our plan from here will be we'll try if conditions allow, we'll graze on and try catch up as much as possible until we get maybe closer to our last herd of grazing, and at that stage then we'll see what way the recovery is coming back on the first grazed paddocks, and maybe then decide whether we stretch out a rotation. I'd be very wary of restricting. Like, we need to catch up as quick as we can, because if we don't graze when we can, the weather could turn again in 3 or 4 weeks' time again. So if conditions allow, we'll graze to try catch up as much as possible. Our target would have been 2/3 grazed by the Patrick's Day. That's normally our target, so we're not going to make that, I don't think. But it'll probably mean pushing out the first round a bit on both the autumn, the spring herds. Different story. We would only maybe have 10 or 12% grazed in some of the herds. So,
and I think that is quite typical of a lot of farms. But as you say, there's a plan in place, and you have made some adjustments to the spring rotation planner. Looking at another aspect of management, you would have carried out breeding for the autumn herd. How did that go, Aidan?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit. I'll tell you when we scan there in a few weeks, but we're finished breeding now. Basically, we would have started there around the 12th, 15th of December, and first 6 weeks, 5-6 weeks spread to Frisian sires, and then we would have used some beef AI, and then just we had a couple of sweeper bulls of dairy beef bulls as well. So we're finished there since the 25th, 26th of February. The sort of activity for the last few weeks when the bulls were in seemed to be low enough. We haven't scanned. We didn't do any scans during the breeding season this year, so we can't really say for definite. But we would have. All the cows were submitted there within the first 6 weeks. Most of them were within the first 4 weeks. There was just a couple of them that hadn't come. We handled a couple, but did very little treatments. Just a couple of them that had we must have missed or something that were sites, and so they just got a shot across land and bringing. So, like I said, conditions, the cows were very settled in terms of production performance and all. They were on a very stable diet, and body condition score would have been when they got in. They had a wet enough back end when they were out grazing there in October and November, and probably they needed to come in when they did, because they were probably at their lowest there towards the 20th to 30th November. But as they were from then on, they were on a good plane in nutrition and gain in condition, and they were in good order. So we'd be hopeful that maybe last year we were around 10% empty after 12 weeks, and probably most, that 75% calved within the first 4 to 5 weeks. So hopefully it will be something similar again this year.
And as you say, the conditions were right. Condition was good, the plane of nutrition. So hopefully they're good indications for the pregnancy rates. Looking then, Aidan, to a few things that you mentioned, as part of your new trials on the farm in Johnstown Castle. So firstly, you were talking about homegrown ration. What's the thinking behind that?
I suppose last year we were looking at it in terms of reducing our dependence on imported meal, just for a country in general, it's just something that we needed to look at and try to produce produce from as locally grown as possible. So that was the main reason behind it. Would we get a similar performance from products that was produced here in Ireland, or if not within the EU, and then avoiding any GM product? We have no issues with it. We're feeding it to the intensive system, but just from maybe down the road from a marketing or perception point of view, it was just something that we needed to look at and see whether we could get the performance on it. So that was really, I suppose, the thinking behind it. A lot of the products, it's barley, beet pulp. The proteins then would be coming mainly from rapeseed and beans. That's the general makeup of the mix.
And then looking at the new swards that you're using. So prior to now, would it have been all perennial ryegrass, or would you have had some clover included in the swards?
Minimal enough clover up until now, because I suppose we would have had very high stock and well 3 cows per hectare on the grazing platform, and probably within the last 10 years, any sward that was reseeded, there would have been a percentage of clover in the mix, but it wasn't really contributing a whole lot that we could see, and there would have been a lot of nitrogen going out, and some of the fields then would have been treated for docks that wouldn't have used the Clover Safe product. So the percentage of clover would be very minimal on any of the autumn systems or on the spring systems up until our new treatment that we put in last year. So the perennial ryegrass is the main component for the autumn herd, and still is, except where we're reseeding. We're trying to get more clover introduced. On the spring system, then we have the 2 treatments would have been almost fully reseeded last year over the course of the year, just to get the treatments similar. So the grass clover is really only starting to sort of get established on both those treatments at the moment, and then the multi-species mix is a mix of different varieties. So,
and like looking to grass clover, we're well versed in the benefits of grass clover in the form of, greater grass production, greater grass quality mid-season, and higher milk solids production, and I suppose a higher volume production from dairy cows. But what are you looking for, and what are the benefits of looking at multi-species swards?
I suppose there's a few things, I suppose, and we don't know whether the benefits are there or not, really, because it's performed very well. John Finn would have had plots here from a more ecological point of view rather than dairy production point of view, and he would have seen the performance. The 6-way mix that we are using here would have outperformed both the grass only and grass clover swards in terms of production for the year, but those were on plot trials where there was no grazing or no maybe poaching or damage done, so it was worth looking at. In terms of, I suppose, it's given a better mix. So if you're in terms of trying to avoid sprays or the multi-species mix, the theory behind it would be that the herbs and the clover would compete with any sort of invasive weed species, so the less dependence on spraying, because you can't really spray with that many products. The other thing that's in it would be we're using chicory, 2 herbs, chicory and plantain. The plantain is supposed to complement, as it would be, an anti-bloating agent sort of for the clover, so hopefully less risk of any bloating from clover if that was going to be an issue in the spring or anything. And it's also a diuretic, so it's supposed to actually, the cows, in theory, the cows are supposed to probably would drink more, urinate more, and disperse the proportion of nitrogen across the sward better than really concentrated in one spot. And then I suppose the chicory is very deep rooted. It can go down to a metre and a half. So there would be better resistance from drought point of view, that would be better recovery from the chicory. And it's probably a better overall size structure, that is more diverse, that if one product isn't going well, the other might help and jump in and help out. That's the theory behind it. It's very early days. A little bit concerning maybe at the moment would be in terms of spring production. Our cover we closed because we haven't really any experience of it yet. We're treating it similar to grass sward, and that would start closing there in early October and be finished then by, I suppose, towards the end of November, and build a cover for the spring. But we saw now it might recover quicker, but the production after being grazed in the last round was very slow, so we ended up with a closing cover of closer to around 500, 520, I think, or something, which is very low, critically low, like on a grass-based system anyway. So at the moment, our cover, I think, on that treatment is still only around 650 per hectare. Now, we have two of those swards were only reseeded late, and they're probably pulling the cover back down a little bit. But so I know the grass clover swards are a little bit that way as well, that they might be struggling for cover earlier in the year, but the multi-species is probably even a step down from that again. But it's early days, we'll see. Hopefully it might recover quicker and we'll get higher growth rates in the next few weeks.
And as you say, Aidan, it's early days yet for this type of research, and it's certainly a new concept for us on the Dairy Edge. So we really look forward to catching up with you across the year to see the progress of the multi-species swards. Thank you, Aidan.
All right, Emma-Louise, thank you.
That's it for this week's episode of the Dairy Edge podcast, and my thanks to Aidan Lawless for joining me on this week's show. Don't forget to rate, review and subscribe to the podcast. You can listen on Apple and Google Podcasts as well as Spotify, and for more information go to the Teagasc website at teagasc.ie. I'm Emma-Louise Coffey, and join me next time for your Dairy Edge.